Bonjour and hello, I'm James and I'll be your host for this season of the Everyday Forum podcast, an original Stratfest at Home podcast showcasing a sampling of the thought-provoking discussions from the Stratford Festival's 2025 Meighen Forum, the festival within the festival designed to enhance and contextualize the performances in the main Stratford Festival season. The following discussion was recorded in front of a live audience in Lazaretus Hall at the Tom Patterson Theatre in Stratford, Ontario, Canada. Enjoy!
Good morning. I had to reprint my notes for this morning because never, ever, ever when I do these, and I do them fairly often, do I remember to say the following. I'm Anne Swerdfager, and I am the Publicity Director for the Stratford Festival. Thank you for joining us today. Let us start by honoring the ancestral guardians of this land, the Anishinaabe, the Haudenosaunee Confederacy, the Wendat, and the Adirondacks. For any Americans who are joining us today, we in Canada are in a time of truth and reconciliation. And as a country, we are working to fulfill the 94 calls to action of the Truth and Reconciliation Commission. Today, I'd like to highlight calls 13 to 17, which discuss the importance of Indigenous language as a vehicle for culture. As Shakespeare lovers, we understand the importance of language in shaping culture. We recognize the importance of its preservation. We acknowledge that there is loss when the language falls out of use or understanding. So we should also understand the importance of protecting, revitalizing, and strengthening the more than 150 languages spoken across this country. We urge you to learn more about the calls to action, which are readily available online. I'm delighted to see so many of you here today. This is our first of the Guardian weekend events, and I'm very sorry to say that stage editor Chris Wiggin fell ill and was unable to travel to Canada this week. But I'm thrilled that the remarkable essayist, novelist, cultural commentator, and Guardian contributor Stephen Marche has agreed to step in.
Guardian Light.
Stephen, we're very grateful that you rearranged your commitments in order to be here. It's a real pleasure. I first came to know Stephen from his fabulous Esquire column, and then very quickly met him here in Stratford when he was one of our very first forum guests on the tour for his fun and fascinating book, How Shakespeare Changed Everything, which, if not in our stores now, soon will be. It's a 2008?
Yeah.
2008 publication. So I think we're in the midst of a reprint, but it's a very popular title, and I thoroughly recommend this book. I read it all the time at work when I'm looking for inspirations for various things. Stephen's a respected Shakespeare scholar. He received his doctorate in early modern English drama from the University of Toronto, studying under the great Alexander Leggett. Is that
That's
correct?
Right. Sandy Leggett, the great.
Stephen taught Renaissance drama at the City University of New York before becoming a full-time writer. I greatly look forward to hearing his discussion with Antoni Cimolino, the artistic director of the Stratford Festival and director of this year's production of The Winter's Tale. For those of you seeing it tonight, lucky you. And for those of you who haven't booked your tickets, do. You can't miss this show. It is a truly remarkably beautiful production. And part of what makes this production remarkable is our guest, André Sills, who plays the principal role of Polixenes. André is also the assistant director of this season's Mackers. I won't say it, Scottish play, working alongside Robert Lepage, and he plays Ross in that production. Antoni is, of course, one of the world's leading directors of Shakespeare. His knowledge of the canon is always a thing of wonder. He has directed 15 productions of Shakespeare here and been assistant director on many more and acted in even more. And many of those Shakespeares have been our top-selling productions in our history here at the Stratford Festival. He is also expert at directing Shakespeare's contemporaries and playwrights through to the modern era. It's a tremendous honor and a pleasure to work with him and to be able to see his productions as frequently as I desire, which is a lot. André is an extremely sought-after Shakespearean actor. He's performed in 15 Shakespeare productions here in Stratford alone, including playing the title role in Coriolanus.
Bravo.
That was also directed by Robert Lepage, and I imagine many of you saw that in 2018 by the round of applause that the title got. Not many places does Coriolanus get an ovation. André's talents stretch far beyond Shakespeare, and it is rare is the actor who speaks Shakespeare's text with such skill and agility as André does. He is also building a name as a director and brought us Get That Hope last season, and as I said, is assisting this year. Now I'm going to stop talking so you can hear from the people who you are here to see, and they're going to discuss reimagining Shakespeare. Thanks,
Anne.
Thanks. Great. So glad to be here. Let me start with just a broad question for both of you, which is that the 3 plays that are on this year, Macbeth, I'm allowed to say it. I'm not a theater person. As You Like It and The Winter's Tale are all famously difficult plays. The Winter's Tale is a problem play. That's how scholars classify it. Actors have a tendency to die during productions of the Scottish play. And As You Like It is also famously a very difficult play to put on because it doesn't have the narrative drive of a lot of Shakespeare productions. So I guess my first question for both of you is, are you gluttons for punishment? Why? I mean, usually one season might have one of these. You just decided to go with the nightmares all at the same time.
Can you tell me the ones that are easy?
I don't know.
We'll
Midsummer Night's Dream, Romeo and Juliet, and
yeah. What do you think?
Well, for the Scottish play, this is, I guess, the 3rd time that I've done that play in different forms, and I think just from a practical side, I think why it gets a bad rap is because it's usually dark and there's a lot of people running around with swords. So there's bound to be some accidents happening backstage or on stage, and yeah.
But neither of you guys say the name, right?
No. And I don't think you can make up your own rules about that. Okay, so I think you just brought us more bad luck.
Well, what is the history of the how many times has it been performed here?
A fair amount. One story about the bad vibes around the name is that it sells. It always sells.
Right, sure.
It is a very popular title. So for a while they thought, if a theater company is putting on the Scottish play, it must mean that they're in financial trouble. Because it was a place so some people think, there's an equation to bad luck because it's one of those plays that
everybody's already an alcoholic, so it's it's natural they'd fall apart.
But when we did it in 2016, our Scottish king, in one of the final performances, ripped his tendon. Ian Lake just severed it, and then he couldn't go on. So his understudy went on. And then another young actor came up to me and he said, barely had his understudy, it was just going on. We just were having rehearsals, and another actor, Jamie Mack, came to me and said, if you want, I'll cover him because, there was only a week left in the run. Sure. Or we had extended. And so I thought, sure, I appreciated the volunteerism. I appreciated the energy. But I thought, okay. Well, within days he was on. We burned through because
you just kept losing.
Cyrus lost his voice. Yeah,
he lost his voice.
Just totally as he was doing it. So then the other actor had to go on. So yeah, a lot of not good things happen. We had an accident on one years ago where an actor fell from the balcony. Yeah, it's just not
Joyce?
A lucky play.
Is that Joyce? Joyce Campion? Yeah.
She really? Oh my God.
As one of the witches. Yeah.
I mean, is it
They don't fly.
Mm-hmm. I know there was.
Despite what Shakespeare says.
But I mean, I remember reading that, in some performances of Dr. Faustus, because they perform satanic rituals on stage, that this had there was actually the conjuring of evil spirits.
Well, that's what they say. That within the text, buried within the text, is a real invocation of evil spirits.
Right. Some literally some kind of black magic in the language itself, which would explain. Clearly, since you guys are actively performing this not speaking Macbeth, you actually believe in these superstitions.
Well,
careful.
I know.
No, you should be careful.
But
don't mess with forces you don't understand.
Exactly,
right?
And that's kind of where I kind of come from. I come from a background in the church and the power of words and the power of spirits and things like that. So, like, if somebody said that house is haunted, I'm not going in it, right? So
I'm the
that's
exact opposite.
that's just me.
Yeah.
And like as we're talking about understudies, like I'm understudying Tom McCamus in that play, so I'm kind of like keeping an eye on him. And so there's times when he's running down the hallway. It's like, hey man, just slow down a little bit, okay? Just slow down, slow down.
He has no greater friend than you.
Like there's times where I feel like if he's about to, I will throw myself under him to catch him, just to make sure he's okay.
Do you think theater people are famously superstitious?
Yeah, I think so too. So there's, I don't know. It's I think between that play and Winter's Tale, where there is a realm of magic, and I don't know. There is a higher being, a higher force that is at play in both of these plays.
And there's verse within Winter's Tale, which kind of is trochaic, like it just goes back into
Right.
3 beat, just like in the Scottish play.
Right, sure.
So-
Maybe we should have everyone here knock on wood. I think the audience should too. I think everyone in the audience should too, just so we're safe.
Thank you, Steve.
Just to do away with it. I want to talk a little bit more about this production of Macbeth before we go on to A Winter's Tale.
He gives it.
I'll just say it every time. So you play Ross.
Mm-hmm.
Ross, to me, as a scholar or former scholar, is one of the most fascinating things in Shakespeare. Is these small characters who have, I think 39 lines in the text. You probably even have less to say on stage, right?
For the most part, yes. But then I think there's been some, based on how the cuts go, might be taking things from here. Or there.
So maybe a bit more. My point is, but on the other hand, the whole play is in him, right? The doubleness, the fair is foul and foul is fair. He's on one. He has these
now
amazing.
you're quoting it.
Right.
I mean, anything else?
Sorry, I'm new to this. I came in last minute. I can't be blamed if the theater burns down.
We'll wrap you in bubble tape before you leave.
Yeah, right. But how do I have this conversation without actually mentioning the text or the name?
All right, I think you're in deep now.
Right, I've gone.
There's a quote
I am
about
so
that
drenched
in the
in
text
blood.
too, right?
So when you have a character where it's so concise and it's so small, and yet it contains, in a sense, a kind of epitome of the whole play.
Mm-hmm.
How do you deal with that as an actor? Because it seems to me like the road for expression is so narrow, but then what you have to communicate is so intense. Like how do you think through it?
It's a good question. Like it's interesting to kind of like clock the differences of playing the title character. And then I think watching from whoever's playing that part to see how the world unfolds around them. So for me, in like the smaller, like even from big to smaller roles, it's always, for me, it's like, what is their function? What are they trying to accomplish? And I think walking through this. The Scottish play, like for Ross, a lot of his text off the top is or in a lot of scenes, is very coded.
Mm-hmm.
So there's either something he's not sure about or something that he's trying to navigate. And I know in some productions they have Ross show up as murderer number 3.
Right.
And he seems to have information about, and the children getting that. So he's almost like one of those equivocators that they talk about.
Yeah.
He's
so
a double, for sure.
Yeah. So it's interesting to kind of like see what that's like in normal productions and then what it is in ours. So, I don't know. It's interesting to just kind of like track that information and going along with. So he's kind of like in this one, a commentary on things that we've just seen, trying to find the truth, and then revealing a terrible truth at the end. So I don't know. It's always interesting with these medium to smaller size parts to just kind of like really figure out what their function is. What are they trying to do to help propel the story forward? And yeah, I don't know.
And then you're going from that like to Polixenes in A Winter's Tale, and so that can you tell me a bit because you're also going to different theaters, right? And how is like do you have to moderate your physical language? Like how do you deal with those distinctions? Or am I overthinking it? Is
No,
it just
no.
no?
Like, well, each stage here has its own, I feel like, vocal requirements.
I want to hear all about the differences that you have to play for different stages. That
Well,
fascinates me.
okay. So the AVON, well, for that one we are mic'd. So there's a lot going on in the way of like soundscape and things like that. But being mic'd is interesting because like on that stage it's such a big space. But for me, I feel like I still have to be on voice even with the mic, so I don't necessarily rely on it. And with this one here, it's deceiving because yes, the audience is so close, but they're also so far at the same time. So depending on where you are on the stage, you always have to be aware of what's behind you. This stage, the festival, and the studio, there's always somebody behind you. And I know the one thing that audiences never like is feeling like they've been left out. So, and it's an interesting challenge vocally for these three specific stages, especially.
Yeah, takes years of experience, doesn't it? Like André is, been with the company over 20 years. What season is this for? Well,
this is 11.
11 here, over 20.
Yeah.
When you are thinking through productions and like which stage gets what, I guess what is the process that you use for that? But also, do you have to think through like which actors are better fits for which stages, or can any actor really perform on any of these stages?
Well, we want to make sure that they can, but it is true to André's point, which is that like this stage is long. It's a kind of a meditation of the thrust stage, meditation, an exploration, a departure from what Tanya originally created. So I think it's harder to play in this space than to play the festival. Like you turn your head in the festival, and there's another 1,000 people who can see your face, right? Here, it's much a longer arc, so it takes more confidence, self-assurance, really being in your body to be able to play this space. In terms of selecting titles for spaces, it really depends on the director's vision. Like we'd been workshopping the Scottish play with Robert since 2019, and we'd been talking about it since 2017. So he had a particular vision for that space.
You can say that again.
Yes.
As having seen it. Yeah.
So that made sense,
right?
The Winter's Tale is not done. It's very often. It's been 15 years since we've done it, and wanted to provide proximity and intimacy for the audience in seeing it, so it made sense here. As You Like It is one of Shakespeare's more popular titles and a comedy, and so I spoke to Chris about doing it at the festival. So it's an alignment of both the inherent qualities in the title, the director's vision, sometimes where we did it last time. If you've all seen the Scottish play done at the festival, it's nice to be able to do it either. It's also really great to see these big titles that you always see on big stages being explored either in the studio or the Patterson, right? Where it's much more of an intimate process. And some titles are chamber pieces, even though they get always done on big stages, and therefore there's an element of spectacle that sometimes can creep in. It's great to allow a chamber piece to be in a small chamber.
And I guess A Winter's Tale really fits that perfectly, right? Because it is such a study of intimacy and study of, I don't know, it's such you're sort of intruding onto a family drama in a way that is not true of a lot of these other places. So it would make there'd be only one theater that could go in, really.
Well,
oh no,
we've had very good productions at the festival, because then you go to Bohemia and then you're suddenly into this, this
it's such
pastoral,
a weird play.
And the festival is very intimate. It's 1,800 seats, but it's 19 feet across that top deck. It's very intimate. So yeah.
So I saw the Scottish play on opening night, and obviously it I don't think I've ever seen a more impressive set that in anything. I mean, I've seen lots of Lepage stuff. I've seen lots of versions of Macbeth, the Scottish play, but
You're finding your way. You're finding your way.
I'm finding my way. But you know, I wonder if it was even a challenge from an acting point of view. When you have a set that is so dominant. I mean, you know, when there's that scene where it goes from like gas stations to barbecues, I mean, the audience went crazy. Like the audience, they just went. It was they were applauding the sets for sure, right? And I just wondered, is that something that you have to think about? Is it something that you have to move around? Is it even something that has a cost on your performance as an actor?
Good question. Well, I think since this is my second time working with Robert,
You were the assistant director on it too, right? Is
Yeah,
that right?
so, like,
right.
yeah,
so
like,
you were involved in this from.
like it was interesting. I was only able to be a part of this most recent workshop that happened in January. So being in Quebec City, seeing a lot of these particular ideas at first, and then coming back here to starting rehearsals was interesting to kind of see how he plays with these things. And yes, there is a size and scale to the set, but also for those who've seen it once, Lady M and Mr. M are in their bedroom, it becomes very domestic and small. So yes, there is a size and scale of it, but it also gives you a size and scale, but it also gives you access to the real domesticity of this couple. So it gives a play to both. It gives an opportunity to get really, really domestic, and also gives you the ability to play the true size and scale of the tragedy of the whole or the supernaturalness of
Right.
the world. Yeah, I don't know. So for me, it's one of the things that was great is that we got to play with a lot of these things early. So it gives us an opportunity to play with it and understand it, and then know what our other scene partner is. And in a lot of ways, that's what it is. It's another scene partner, that it's not just a separate entity. It is something we are playing with as well.
Quite consciously, right? Because it's just such a weird set where it can go from the spectacular to the intimate on the like at the drop of a pin, and it's so controlled that it shapes it. I mean, does that make the performances? Does that remove some of the intimacy, like the immediacy from it, or is it a bit like you're in play with it?
And play with it, like, and I think that's the one thing that Robert's generally really good at is he gives you like within, as an actor and the audience, a focus of where this is, you can see where they are, so there's no wonder about where's the scene happening.
Right.
So it's like
There's specificity to everything.
There's specificity in that.
Yeah.
And so it gives, I think, the audience a bit of time to just kind of like relax their brain and just listen and watch. And sometimes, with Shakespeare, there can be a lot of, where are we right now? Where are we right now? But, you're then trying to get back onto the train of listening. So it gives us the opportunity to watch and just listen.
Right. I mean, maybe we should. I'd like to talk to both of you about sort of the eternal debate around modern productions versus traditional dress productions. A Winter's Tale is definitely it's the Shakespeare play that professors like. Like, I don't know about audiences, but professors love it because it's so weird. And it's so, and it's, if people don't know, there's a long time break at the end of the third act where time comes and gives a long speech about the nature of time. And then the first three acts are a tragedy, and then the second two acts are comedy. It's very hard to describe what they are, really. But my point is, this is a very modern thing. It's an adaptation of a novel, As You Like It, and it is it plays with time in a way that most plays in this period did not. and yet you've decided to do it. So it sets up very well for modern dress. I think every production I've ever heard of has been in modern dress.
Yeah.
And you went and did traditional dress. Why?
Well, every production I'd ever seen was in modern dress. So,
Right.
And, and I feel like it's a tale. It's a tale.
Yeah.
So weird things happen. It's almost an experimentation in form. I mean, it was one of the last things he wrote. And thank God there weren't dramaturgs around when he wrote it, because they would say, you can't do that, you can't do it. And he does, so, but it has a really sound structure. There's thesis in the first 3 acts. There's antithesis in the Act 4, and then there's synthesis in Act 5. So it's all brought together. So there's a soundness to it, but there's also extremes, which is terrific. But ultimately, it's a tale. It is a tale to be told by a campfire. Apollo comes in and represents divine justice. So I watch these productions, and everybody's got suits and ties on. They live nominally in, Western societies, and suddenly Apollo comes up and he says, do this, and they all jump too. And I go, really? Really? Would we do that? So my brain kind of goes, why don't we try it once where we actually set it in the world, in the tale world that Shakespeare is talking about, so that those things are possible. There's also a more important thing than all of that. It's about some pretty heavy stuff in human experience.
Definitely.
Toxic masculinity, how boys grow up, the impact that men's behavior can have on women and children. Women's shelters are packed today.
Yeah.
This play was never intended to be written about women's shelters today, but it has a truth which is at the heart of that, which is archetypal. It's Jungian. It gets right to the basic elements of what it means to be a human being. So to start encumbering it with issues that Shakespeare could not have anticipated in detail 400 years ago seems to me ill-advised. For me, other people do something.
It would be like turning it into like a biker gang thing or something.
Right. Well, yeah. No, and we see a lot of Scottish plays. You see it often. So, Shakespeare's like a weed. Like, you're not going to get rid of him, right? And nothing is right in Shakespeare, and nothing's entirely wrong in Shakespeare. So he will be able to survive this. But for me, in this moment, I wanted to get to something which is a truth that's essential and clear the way of things so that we can all just imagine. Shakespeare often begins his plays with the word if, about the idea of the suspension of disbelief, allowing yourself to go imaginally on a journey. And I wanted to do that for The Winter's Tale.
I've always felt with The Winter's Tale, I mean, it may be the professor's thing that you just don't want to teach the Tempest one more GD time.
There's also a long break in time in The Tempest, right? It just happens before it starts.
That's true, but the vision of the redemption by way of art at the end of, and the redemption of love and art at the end of A Winter's Tale,
yes,
I think is just unbelievably powerful.
We are mocked by art.
Yeah, we are mocked by art. It's such a underplayed scene in a way, right?
Yeah.
Like it's definitely one of his absolute master scenes.
And so in that, not to ruin it, I wanted to try something in terms of the lighting that I had not seen before. We light it with handheld sources. And so one day in the rehearsal hall, we just blacked out the rehearsal hall. And I said, this won't work, but let's try anyway. So we just had handheld sources to be able to see the world. And it gave an element of fantasy.
Yeah.
It was Caravaggio. It was Joseph Wright.
Yeah. Chiaroscuro.
Yeah.
Stuff,
and so there's ways of exploring, enabling our ears to hear in a different way on the stage. And I think Robert's work, the dreamlike, beautiful way that he, even though there's a lot of sets in front of you, he enables us to listen.
Yeah, I mean, I was being facetious earlier, but the biker gang stuff did work.
Yeah.
I mean, they are a bunch of clans, and they like violence, and they have loyalty, and they have all this stuff. When you were researching it, did you go out and meet? I mean, we're in southwestern Ontario. You couldn't have had to go very far to meet a biker gang. Did you guys actually go out and meet any biker gangs, or how did you deal with that sort of aspect?
Well, it's funny is that right before starting the workshop in January, I was out at Bishop's University working with Dr. Jessica Riddell, and not even realizing where I was, and I was telling her about the play, and she's like, "Oh, do you know where you are?" In Lennoxville,
Right.
Sherbrooke, and she's like, so right from where I was staying, she's like, right over there. That's where the Hells Angels compound was, and I was like, "Oh, damn, okay." So you could still see the barricaded, like the driveway up, and then the big old barbed wire fence, and so it was interesting to just kind of like see what that location was. And like, there's not much in Sherbrooke or Lennoxville,
No.
but like for that to be, and then seeing the river that was there too, where a lot of bodies were found. And so it was like an accidental research of sorts,
Huh, wow.
and seeing what some of those motels looked like. And
I mean, to me, it was very obvious that it was about Montboucher. Was that ever explicitly said? Was anyone?
Oh, well,
Because
like-
he had the same relationship with his wife, like this very tight.
Yeah.
They were really together in this murderous regime.
Yeah.
Was that really was that it was consciously that
oh
was
yeah,
the guy?
100%. So
right.
like on our first day of rehearsal, we got taken through a whole like display of what the Hells Angels were like, or their sort of system, and the rock machines. What is it?
Yeah,
Rock Machine.
And the war between the two of them. So we got taken through, and the inspiration of
Rock Machine versus Banditos, I think it was. Is that what it was?
Yeah.
yeah.
Was it? Yeah.
And as we're talking about the clans and the hierarchy within the biker gang, it's very similar to like the kings and thanes. So there's things that people are in charge of, but there's somebody who is in charge, and there is a loyalty and a system that you don't break, and if you do, it's very like the Elizabethan chain of being. You disrupt that, things turn into a mess.
The violence gets out of control very,
Exactly.
very quickly once
Yeah.
the power vacuum is gone. It works very well.
And intention, like there are acts of extreme violence that, if they're in service of the state and to the greater whole, to everybody else, we all go, it's horrible, but it was done for the common good.
Right.
Whereas you can do much less violent things, but if you do it for the wrong intention, which becomes personal,
Yeah.
Yeah.
it changes everything.
I mean, it's interesting from a, I'm an op-ed writer, so my brain tends to go immediately to the news automatically. But the Scottish play seems to me like extremely urgent to our moment, right? We're actually seeing tyranny, right? We're seeing like tyranny take over various countries, and we're seeing the same psychological logic of I'm steeped in blood. I have to go over, right? That thing with Macbeth where he's like, I've crossed this line. Can I cross back? I can't cross back. A next line presents itself. The brilliant dramatic structure of that is just, well, it's the first thriller, really. It's the first political thriller. Were you guys aware? Were you guys thinking about the news when you were doing these plays, or was it an escape from the news?
Well, gosh,
Like you're doing the Scottish play as, I mean, not to put too fine about it, Trump is sending in agents and so on. Like,
Well, the good thing about doing Shakespeare is that the news catches up eventually.
right.
well, and it's funny.
That's a
it's
good
like,
way of putting it.
Sometimes you'd wish that there'd be some like thought, like as in like an Act 1 Macbeth as opposed to an Act 4. So like as opposed to like, hey, if it were done when 'tis done, then actually taking about 5 minutes to work through, should I do this thing?
Yeah.
As opposed to strange things I have in hand that will to hand, which must be acted ere they may be scanned. So there's like a difference of like his thought process from, I don't know if I want to do this thing. I don't know if I want to do this thing. It's like, no, we're going to do this thing. So it's just like that's where I feel like our leaders, a lot of our leaders are today, is like, we're going to do this thing without even really thinking about, like, what is the strategy?
Yeah,
Is there a strategy, or are we just acting impulsively? And
Yeah, I kept thinking, when I saw it, I kept thinking, I mean, of that line where, that incredible line that Lady Macbeth has, where she's like, hide my crime in the dun of heaven so before heaven can cry, hold, hold. Like, she's saying, like, don't see what I'm doing so that I don't have to think about it, so that I can do this without, like, it's this weird thing of like, just commit me to evil so that I don't have to think about it anymore.
Right.
Which just seems to me like, it's incredible how psychologically apt that is. That's exactly how you find these people behaving. You know, like it's the psychological details are so tellingly the same as in, you know, when's Macbeth, 1605, 1607? Right after 1607.
Well,
isn't it right after James comes to the throne?
Yeah, and it's in that
period. It's just unbelievable how parallel they are to me. It's strange.
So on this point, legitimacy is really important in this, right? And when they go to Scone, there's going to be a stone there under the throne which provides the legitimacy for the king. But they live in a world where you can be legitimate all you want. The person in the who actually carries the day is one who can plant an axe into somebody else's head most effectively.
Right.
So you've got a king, but he's not a fighter. He's an old king, and he appoints his son who's young and probably not a fighter. But the person who actually saves their bacon, the person who defends the state, is Mackers.
Right.
But he's not going to be king.
Right.
And so his wife asks a question that probably everybody's thinking, which is like, why in a state where it's, and we can ask ourselves about the world today, in a state where, you know, like, it's violent. There are real political, economic interests. Let's just get on with it. Why fool around with things like legitimacy or due process or you know, considerations that are longer term?
Right.
Let's get on with what needs to get done. And let's put the most effective person who is not going to be worried about quibbles and, you know, dithering in charge.
Right.
Doesn't always work.
A Winter's Tale, but it was funny because, you know, wondering where evil comes from, like, this is a permanent question, but it's also super topical right now. Like, and the way that they convince themselves to do it in the Scottish play is just unbelievable to me. But A Winter's Tale has the same question, right? Where does Leontes, how does he get this idea in his head that he's been betrayed and that he's the victim? You know, you were talking about toxic masculinity a bit earlier. But it's so interesting at the earliest part of that play that it's like, why did you ask your wife to ask this question? She does it, and then you get mad about it. You know, I mean, it's like, you really need therapy. Like, this really could have been worked out with, like, you know, that Crave show, like, therapy.
Well, you're right, Stephen. It's enigmatic, right? We don't understand. First of all, he does things that are in many ways much worse than, let's say, Othello. Because,
much worse.
You know, he sends his child off to be eaten by crows as a baby. He wants, you know, he wants his wife killed and burnt. And he's fully in on these things. He causes the death of his son inadvertently, but still. So, and he doesn't have an Iago. There's no need.
Yeah.
You know,
it's right. It comes straight from his own head.
Like the play, I Am My Own Wife.
But it's always like,
I am my own Iago.
I love how everybody around him is like, who is telling you these things?
Right. Yeah, right.
Who? Because like going back to like an Othello, it's just like, somebody must be poisoning your brain. Who is this person?
Yeah.
And so, but then you look at what Shakespeare's constructed, which is, you've got a boy in the play, Mamilius, who's like 7, 8 years old, and these two men, which we now see as grown men who are having children. Mm-hmm. They first met when they were 7 and 8 years old. They've grown up together. There's a line later on in my, wow, if I saw you now when I was 21, I'd think about all the crazy things we'd done, you know?
Yeah.
They went through adolescence together. They competed together as young men, as kings. And now they've been together for a time. And so there's a seed there about what is it to be a boy growing up to be a man? What is it to deal with other men?
Yeah.
How do you, and somewhere in that, without being explicit about it, because it's Shakespeare, it's not Shaw.
Yeah. He doesn't have like an essay explaining his philosophy.
And Ibsen too. So it's enigmatic. We don't know, but we know that something very powerful is there in his mind. Later on, we're having Stephen Brienblatt come and talk about Shakespeare and Freud and second chances.
I'm Guardian Light. That's Guardian Plus. Stephen Greenblatt.
But it's to the point you're making, which is, where does this come from and how does it take seed?
Well, then also the thing that's, because I think one of the things that's so fascinating about A Winter's Tale right now is that it offers a path to the redemption of this toxicity. Right, which we don't have a path. Like we can identify toxic men, we can do all the time, but we don't have a path to redemption. And in a sense, the redemption is as mysterious as where it comes from. Like it's just such a, let's not spoil it. We're all going to go see it tonight. But it has a very weird ending. Like an unexpected ending. But then he's redeemed, and it's like, that's something that we don't have anymore. We don't have. We're dividing. Your crimes you're gone. Like when you're there's no path back for you. We're all in the Macbeth world now. We're not in the Winter's Tale world.
So what does he do? He spends 16 years grieving, penance every day for 16 years. We struggle as a society. If somebody murders somebody, should they be executed? Right. Should they not be executed? If they stay in jail, how do we know that they have reformed their behavior? How do we know that they are truly contrite and have, Shakespeare takes a guess, 16 years of penance. In addition to that, it's enough time for a new generation to come. And that new generation sets right the sins of their father, of the parents. The poison, those spreads, like Publicity. He's a changed person when we see him 16 years later. He's not the generous, easy, affable person we see at the beginning. When we go back to Bohemia, he's still, you can see that the poison of the betrayal from his friend has carried across to him and also impacts his son, like because of his behavior with his son. Yeah. It takes years so that, talk about today, multi-generational trauma is the reductive way I can describe what's happening in the play.
Publicity is fascinating because he has this change, and then in a sense he is the person who needs to provide redemption, but he's so broken that in a sense he can't offer, even if he wanted to, he can't redeem his friend the way that he would.
Yeah, and it's
what's such an unusual play, right, in that regard.
Yeah, because starts at the beginning, this terrible thing happens, and then he disappears, and you don't see him until 16 years later. Right. And that's an interesting thing about the redemption too. You hear about the 16 years, but you never see what Leontes' redemption story over that time is. You just know that he's been doing this for 16 years. But yes, the pain of that event from 16 years ago, as you see him again, he's like, we're not talking about that guy anymore.
Right.
I don't want to hear about him.
Yeah.
Let's talk about something different. And I don't know. It's interesting how sometimes it's a big scar, and we think we've healed, but we're not talking about that.
Right.
We don't go there.
Yeah. The scar, it's healed, but it's a scar.
Yeah.
I heard you had a really good bocce game last show. Is that true? Was anybody there? Yeah. He came through.
It happens. The ball is uneven. Doesn't go. Anyways, that's another thing.
Yeah, games and ball games was important to this production, as you'll find. Yeah.
So we haven't talked about As You Like It. As you may or may not know, Pink Black, the K-pop group, their lead singer Jenny has a top 20 hit album that's it's inspired by As You Like It. So I've assumed you've both heard it. What do you think of the album?
It's on my listen to next.
I'm just kidding. I think there's limits to all of our cultural consumption. But what I mean, obviously, it's just amazing to me that when you put those words in the same sequence, it doesn't seem possible. Yet that's Shakespeare, right? I mean, he does survive in these incredibly weird ways all over the world. It's set in the near future. Can you tell me like why that was why that decision was made?
Chris Abraham, the director, and I were speaking last year around this time. And we talked about As You Like It for a while. And he said, okay, I just want to really understand why you're programming it right now. And I said, well, an old friend of mine who's in his 90s now, when he was in theater school years ago, he said that a teacher said to him as he was leaving theater school, he said, look, in your professional career, if you hit hard times, and you will, read As You Like It. Because it is about finding the light, finding the solution, and it starts in a pretty dark place. And I said, Chris, the world right now is really getting darker and darker.
Right.
We need a journey that deals with the world as it is right now and helps us find a better place. And that's what As You Like It's about. And he said, gotcha. And then he came back, having taken that in, and he said, that really helped. And then he came back with this beautiful idea about the impact of climate change and what we're doing to our world right now. And all the darkness that's happening. And so that is absolutely there at the beginning of that play. When they talk about in a better world than this, they're talking about a pretty dark place. But nature and, springtime and the company of other people who just want to love the earth, each other, humanity, manages to find a path to a better world. And so that's what the production beautifully, it's very poignant, very thought-provoking at the beginning, and then, it really is genuinely, hilarious later on. And, yeah.
I mean, it is kind of the ultimate Stratford play in a sense, right? Like, you leave the big city, you come to a place in the country, and you experience magic, and then you are redeemed, right? And then that works, and then you go back to the city redeemed in some sense.
Yeah, and on that point, like when I directed it years ago and had music by Bare Naked Ladies in it, we actually rehearsed some of the scenes outdoors because of that.
Right.
Like, what's it feel like to actually be out in the grass?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and the redemption by way of nature as well. I mean, both of them, I guess, in a sense, both of these, I mean, A Winter's Tale is a problem play. Like, it famously does not fit generic categories. It's not, I don't think you can really call it a comedy. Like, it's not a comedy like any comedy that you would describe, but it has a happy ending, which is the definition of comedy. And As You Like It, similarly, it's not necessarily funny in the sense of a comedy, but on the other hand, it has the redemptive arc. I mean, was that kind of? I mean, I guess it goes back to my original question about like being a glutton for punishment. Was it that this moment in time that we're in is so complex and so unclear and so foggy and very hard to see what is real from what is not? Is that why you chose these kind of more difficult plays to do?
Yes.
Well said.
Thank you.
That was it. That's absolutely it. No, but theater needs to be about now. Like opera can be about 10 years or 20-year stretches of things, but theater, and we know of times when opera was, like Verdi and the Italian unification, when it's actually on point. But that's still great arcs of time. Theater kind of needs to be about today, even if it's not directly talking about what's happening today. Like I had after a break on Winter's Tale, I had an American gentleman come and say, this is absolutely about what is happening right now. And he took me through why he felt that was the case. So I think it's important to do plays that have got some grist to them. Yeah. It's maybe not the moment for Two Gentlemen of Verona, or maybe it is. Or
maybe next year will be so dark you'll have to do Two Gentlemen of Verona. Please do this. Let's do the 12th Night in Romeo and Juliet and be done with it. You know what I mean?
That was last year.
Was that last year?
That's right.
Yeah, so I guess the question that remains is what is the moment now? What are you going to do next? Like what does the moment that we're in demand that you do next?
Well, last year's theme was A World Elsewhere. And sure enough, everybody was traveling, so they weren't here. And not in the numbers I wanted them to be.
Right. You got crushed by COVID and then post-COVID.
Right,
yeah,
because everybody
sure.
went, oh, I've always wanted to see, and the tourism levels were huge.
Yeah. But now we can't leave, man.
Do you want to talk more about that? Whereas, this year, that's why I wanted to center the season around conflicts and the resolution. So we don't dwell in the negative place. How do we find answers to what's going on? It's going to get more complex. That's the thing you learn about Shakespeare, right? It always gets worse before it gets better.
Right.
It's not the worst. While we have breath to say, it is the worst.
Yeah. So
I think I've got to find a way of picking up the frying pan, which doesn't burn the hand of everybody who here. Then I'm thinking a lot about the role of theater in our lives and celebrating that.
Right. I mean, when you did Coriolanus years ago, I mean, I thought that was the most wonderful Coriolanus I'd ever seen. But it was also, I actually wrote a piece after that called Coriolanism, which was about how Coriolanus really explains the world we're in, because you have these you have people who are an elite who are loyal to their elite, using their nations as excuses, but they actually really don't care if they're Roman or whatever. They just care about their honor, right? And do you ever do these things, productions, and then you see them happening in real life, and you're like, wow, I wish I was doing that now again? I mean, like, it seems like Coriolanus to me is like 2025 on a cracker, like.
Yeah, well, like I would love to do that one again. But like I think Coriolanus was I found so intense, and like one of those things that I clocked in the journey of it is playing with the iambic, and a lot of his text was like out of rhythm, so not on that perfect 10 beats. But then there was moments it was like, oh, what is he saying here? Like in this moment where I felt like he was like, I feel like he's speaking his politics, and they were in like the perfect 10. I was like, oh, interesting.
Right.
So like some of those hard thoughts of as he's speaking about the people and the truth from him about what the people are or what it means to. Well, and I think in that particular world, he was speaking to people who, in his mind, seemed lazy and not stepping up and showing up. They just want things without working for things. And even as he was talking to the tribunes, it's like, you're just these mouthpieces for the people, but you're not actually doing anything. Get out there and do something. But I feel like now we're into a world where people are being activated to do something. And like I think that's why, like, for me, like, even with these plays that we're going through or that we're experiencing this year with Winter's Tale, and as you're seeing people going through the hard times. We see Leontes go on his journey. However rough it starts, he has to go through it to then get to the end. Because if he shortchanges that journey, he might be shortchanging his redemption at the end. You have to see him go through and do those terrible things to then, I don't know, put the question to you, the audience, and be like, has he earned that?
Right.
But I think that's one of those things with Shakespeare as well. It's like sometimes I feel like we can, as the artists, can want to judge and fix Shakespeare as opposed to leaving the answer to you, the audience, to then debate and question and leave, talking about it, do you think he earned it? Or so I don't know. It's one of those things that I find really interesting, because as opposed to, yes, it's done, redeemed, all good. And it's and for me, that kind of like wraps up sometimes where you're just like, oh, that was great. And now let's not talk about it anymore. Whereas I think more often with Shakespeare, he leaves you with an ending that can be not unsatisfying, but there's just something that
Unsettling.
So it leaves you wondering about what will tomorrow be like for these people.
Yeah, that's a really interesting observation. Coriolanus is famously, as you know, a text that has extra beats, like 12, 13, like just huge. And editors have tried to regularize it, but
you can't really, right?
You can't reconcile. But why? Because of the invective, the name calling, but that's really interesting about the regularity of the things that really come from his beating heart.
Yeah.
That's beautiful. And all these plays are working towards trying to understand something, working towards it, and you've got to watch the person go through it to try to find the right answer, and they don't often get there. And there's always something disquieting about the end, because perfection is not possible. There's something very zen about Shakespeare. Like, you can't arrive at that right ending. There will always be a part of the vase, the broken vase, that can't be put back into place. And at the end of the Coriolanus, when he's eventually killed brutally, horribly, and in an unfair way, we've spent a whole evening looking at what valor brings, like the perversion of valor, the idea, this military code that means manliness or humanliness in the original Latin. But we watch it do horrible things. His child is eating butterflies with his mouth. His mother is horrific, like a gargoyle. And you think
nightmare.
Militarism is horrible. It's horrible. But then you get to the end, and he is killed in an unfair way, in an underhanded, cheap way. And one of the lines is, "Thou hast done a deed that would make valor weep." And then you begin to realize, oh, there is actually something to what's called valor, proper behavior in the there is, and it's arriving at understanding the value of that word, which is in part what the play's about.
I've just realized what I've been trying to get out of you guys from these questions. So, like, the topic of this is like reimagining Shakespeare, right? Which this is your job, right? Like, you have to figure out Shakespeare's. But, from a scholar point of view, even from the book I read, what I've always been fascinated by is how the world changes Shakespeare, right? How Shakespeare's performed in Nazi Germany. He's also performed in the Soviet Union, right? They do, in different versions. And you guys have been doing this a long time. 20 years you had your first gig here?
20 years ago, yeah.
20 years ago.
But we were doing Shakespeare for that.
Yeah.
We were doing Shakespeare before that. You've been 39 years?
Yeah, 38 this year.
38 years. How have you seen the world change Shakespeare over that time? Like, you've lived through this period of actually pretty amazing historical change, really. Like, and I wonder how you've seen the world change Shakespeare, rather than Shakespeare responding to, like, I know you guys are trying to figure out how to make Shakespeare relevant, but in a sense, you don't really need to, because he's always, Pink Black finds him relevant,
yeah.
Right? Like, how have you seen the world change him?
You got to go first. If you want, no, I'm kidding. But go ahead, yeah, please.
Well, I think I think for me, being on the inside a lot, and now I like stepping out, like I had my first experience of like directing a Shakespeare, working with the conservatory this past winter, and we actually did The Winter's Tale as well, and like I had a bunch of questions, especially about Bohemia. I was like, what the hell is Autolycus? What's his purpose? But one of the things that, as I mentioned before, sometimes with Shakespeare, we want to find a way to fix it for today, to really, I don't know, not sanitize. Sanitize isn't the word, to make it relevant to today. But I think for me, we still do it today because none of the problems have changed. And sometimes I think to get out of the way and to just put it up in, however we choose to set it, but, to just trust that sometimes Shakespeare will be enough to, as I said, leave it with the audience, to let you leave and grapple with these ideas after you leave the theater. Yeah, I don't know. So it's for me, it always comes down to like,
You don't really have to do. You just let the world do what it's going to do to Shakespeare. You just present him in a certain
I think
sense.
so. Yeah.
Right.
And because it has everything that's needed. I do think that Shakespeare is more powerful and more interesting and more visceral during bad times.
No doubt.
So, Shakespeare can, if everybody's economically, like everything's smooth and things are pretty good for most people, it can become, under the wrong hands, soporific. So it just kind of like, it reaffirms everything you thought you knew and makes you feel good about it, and you leave. And that's what I think is, not if it's done well, because in there, in the DNA of it is a revolution, right?
Yeah.
But it can be made the fall of the Berlin Wall, it felt like a couple of years there. Wow. Well, totalitarianism, we're done. Everything's going to be good. And then Rwanda happened, then Bosnia, and things started to, and then it just kept on spinning. So now we kind of have the opposite problem, which is the world has become so absurd that it's hard to satirize it. It's hard to,
Absolutely.
It beggars description, as Shakespeare would say.
Yeah, you can't ironize it.
No,
Yeah.
and so I do think, though, that, the history plays in Poland behind the Iron Curtain had a power to them because they were telling truths that you couldn't, and I feel like we just need to look at the world we're in today, so Shakespeare, I think, is more vibrant in an upset world because that's what he's talking about.
I think you need art. In moments like this, you really need art, right? Trump won, you could do with entertainment. You could get Friends, and you could just watch Friends and under the covers and just chill out and go dead brain for a while. But now you need meaning. You really need meaningful things. And Shakespeare, of course, is the ultimate font of all that stuff.
And I think it's like also as well, it's for me, it's always... he's always doing an exploration of humanity in the good, bad, and the ugly.
Right.
And they're not just characters and not just heroes and villains. They are humans. So, if we can get away from those sort of like archetypal sort of words of like, that's just the villain. But if you can make that idea of a villain seem human,
Absolutely.
then it becomes harder for the viewer to grapple with that idea of, I don't know, it goes back to like thinking of the first time I watched the Black Panther movie, and Warmonger, his reasoning for why he was doing things made perfect sense.
Sure. Yeah.
It's just like, you might not agree with how he's going about it, but his reasoning and his philosophy as to why is like, yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, Shakespeare makes us complicit.
Yeah.
Like we discover the villain in ourselves. We discover the little bit of a hero in ourselves. Anytime you're in a theater and you're looking down your nose at what's happening, like you're on the side of the angels and you're judging what's happening, it's bad theater.
Well, you want M and Lady M to win. There's some weird part of your brain that is saying, I hope they get through this all. I hope it all works out for them.
Right. It's just a little murder.
They're such a cute couple. I hope it all works out for them.
We've all screwed up at times.
We've all made mistakes.
Right? Come on.
I think we're on to the question aspect of this.
Yes, I thought I'd get ready anyway.
I think
you're all set.
we're ready for questions, aren't we?
Okay, well, I have several in a stream here of thought, and I'll start with them. They are about modernizing, largely. Tim Couch speaks about the cinemifying of live theatre, i.e. horses on stage versus imagining. What impact do you think this has on experiential learning during live theatre?
So they're referencing a playwright who I think did an interview on CBC yesterday, and that's Tim Crouch. And he references, when we speak of horses, imagine that you see them. So in the chorus in Henry V. So that Shakespeare was creating the impressions that we need to hear through the words, right? And he invites our imagination to do that, to body forth the things that are being described. So I agree. I'm a minimalist. I like less. I'm not a big fan of sets, but Robert's worked them beautifully, done a great job. It's a festival, however, so we need lots of different ways of doing things. I think that stuff is stuff. You can quote me on that. And stuff,
Title of your book,
right? Stuff can be used to set the word against the word. So you're looking at something, you're thinking, really, does that work? And stuff can be make us feel comfortable. I had a lady last night saying that she did not feel the Ustinov production, where they set it in the 19th century with velvet furniture, worked for the eye gouging out. Which was really interesting. And you think, well,
they wouldn't
actually,
do that then.
No, they wouldn't do that because there's velvet on the furniture.
Yeah.
But no, I'm not. She had a point,
Messy,
which was
very messy.
But there was a deliberate decision with Ustinov as that actor that Robin wanted to make it domestic and familiar. There was an intense process that he went through to get there. And maybe we need to start imagining eyes getting gouged out with furniture around, because they do. Not in my experience, but I'm told.
I've never seen it.
So I'm just saying, stuff can sometimes be helpful in comedy. Sometimes it's better, but it's a thing. And Shakespeare was not into the stuff. He was busy getting you to think the stuff. That's my view. André?
Yeah, it's an interesting, like one of the reasons I asked to assist Robert is because I knew there was going to be a lot of stuff. And, so having done Shakespeare with nothing and then being able to do Shakespeare with everything, it was an interesting sort of like learning process of like, how do we make sure that even if there's nothing or everything, how do we make sure that it stays focused on the story at hand?
Right.
And I think if we can find a way to make sure that the story is always first and foremost, then no stuff or all the stuff, then I think we still have a good show.
As a spectator, I would just say, if the sets are as good as Robert Lepage's, that's fine.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like that seems to me a special category. Mm-hmm. Like if you're putting whether sets or not sets, that's an extreme edge of how good this can be.
Yeah.
Right. So that's a bit of a different situation.
Yeah. Does it beautifully.
Yeah.
Yeah, for me, it's the boards. I can't watch a movie of Shakespeare when they're outside. Doesn't make any sense to me at all. Got to see those wooden boards. I have 4 other questions here that are all about traditional, because that's the topic of today's discussion. One person says, you must have gotten many letters and comments as artistic director from audience members and patrons about modern versus traditional productions. How have these reactions changed or evolved over the years? I have to answer a lot of those along with you, Antoni, and I'd like to say they haven't. We had our very first modern dress Shakespeare in 1953, and people still think that we only do period Shakespeare. Do you have a response at all there as well, Antoni?
No, I think it doesn't. It totally matters, and it doesn't matter how you set a play, in the sense that if you don't understand the underlying material, if you don't understand the image train, the themes, what's being done in the script, you can set it on the moon, or you can set it in pumpkin pants. It'll be garbage, right? It just won't work. If, however, you spend time really trying to understand the story that you're telling and you get down in detail, then you can do all sorts of miraculous things with it, set it in many different ways. And as we were saying beforehand, the good news is that Shakespeare is so complex that anything's possible. Some of it will be right. The bad news is he's so complex that it all won't work, right? It defies trying to put it in. But we have the job of creating something for you today from a point of view that has coherence. And so we're going to do an essay. We're going to try. And we're going to try with a certain way to tell and some of it may work. Some of it you may never see better done again. And some of it won't work. But that's good, because then you have to buy another ticket and come to another play.
But that is true. Like, I think it's the same thing of, like, you know, actors playing one part versus seeing, like, because Tom McCamus is not Ian Lake, nor is Ian Lake Colin Feore, and just going back in order of the last Scottish kings. And they each provide something different. So setting it in period, setting it contemporary, like, does offer something different. So if you're coming to this Scottish play expecting Colin Feore's version, you're not going to get that, you know, and the same thing design-wise. So I think it just opens you up to an opportunity to possibly seeing something new that you might not have expected from before.
And I think you've really answered this next question, which was you've made a great case for a traditional production to not concern the show with other modern concerns. So why do modern? What does it give us, and how do you make the case? So I think we've really addressed that. When we are adapting, of course, things happen to the stage, to the play, and these two people are asking about that. Who decides what scenes or characters to delete or combine? The director, a dramaturge, and separately, what is lost or gained by, in a particular instance here, by cutting the scene in which Macduff's family is murdered?
You're going to answer that one.
I have thoughts.
Yeah, good. Well, the director is usually the one that makes those decisions. They may do it along with the dramaturg and, you know, after careful consideration. And everything has implications. Like, you're dealing with something that is a work of genius. And you don't know what you're messing with, but you got to mess with it. It doesn't matter. Even if you do exactly, first of all, there's no set text. Like, some of them have set text, but even the folios don't all agree. There's some modest changes. So you're going to have to do something, and the question is, what do you want to do? But what do you think about the?
Well, I would just say, from a historical point of view, like from a professor point of view, you know, until the middle of the 19th century, usually only about 2/3 of the Shakespeare text survived in any production. Like, they did whatever they wanted. They turned Romeo and Juliet into a comedy all the time, right? Like, when Bowdler came along, and, you know, that's sort of a bad word, like where he took out the dirty words, what he was actually doing was giving versions of the play that people could put on, right? So he's actually trying to restore more of the text. And when you come to places like Stratford, you have to realize that they're really a historical anomaly insofar as they are devoted to actually doing Shakespeare in the purest form that they can, right? So it's so funny to me that people would come to you and say, "Well, you're changing this one scene." It's like, no. You guys are the only people in history who are actually trying to do it right. Everyone else is like, "Yeah, we're doing Romeo and Juliet. I really don't like this ending. It's not gonna sell, man. I mean, they both die. Like, let's just have them get married at the end." And they go, "Yeah, done." And that's
for like over 100 years.
That was absolutely the standard until the end of the 19th century.
And Lear.
And then Lear, it was almost always a comedy, right? So it's just funny that, like, people would think that you're the ones disturbing the play by cutting a single scene. Mm-hmm.
Can I get you to respond to the mail, please?
But it's just and also Shakespeare absolutely rearranged his plays all the time. That's why there were so many multiple versions of it, which was a nightmare for scholars trying to figure out what the actual play is. But they're manipulatable texts; they always were.
Yeah,
right? And this is actually the purest form that has historically ever existed. What you're doing in this theater, right? So
and yeah, I'm really interested because you got to deal with the outcome of what the removal of that.
Yeah, that's right.
One of my scenes is cut.
Yeah, that's right. And it's the duality of your character is totally involved in that. Yeah.
Well, I think like thinking back to this particular cut that we have, I think Robert's vision was to really kind of focus in a little bit more on the couple's journey throughout. And with that particular scene cut, I think he was interested in seeing how it would play, because we get the information. I still come in with the information of what happened. And instead of, I guess, seeing it, in a sense, seeing it twice, you just get the information. It's kind of like, in a sense, like Winter's Tale, 5-2.
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
We don't get to see the kings reunite.
It's so weird.
It's so weird.
He even says you've missed a scene that had to be seen to be believed, not to report it. He says it right in the scene. The perverse bastard.
It's like, you're Shakespeare. Why don't you do it for us, man?
Shakespeare does it all the time. Like he does that trick all the time. It's like, yeah, I could show you this thing, but I'm not. I'm just going to have people report on what happened.
Although that is ancient Greek tragic rules too. They never do that too.
Yeah.
So maybe he was thinking of that.
Yeah. So I don't know. It's interesting. Like, so to kind of like see like that particular scene cut, only then to have Ross report that terrible news.
So how does that feel? Because like, if you're doing it in a regular production, and we've all seen the little children get killed, and then you're reporting it, the audience is, I mean, I know everybody knows this text, but maybe some don't. And we're ahead of them, the actor playing Ross. Whereas here, you're in a different position.
Yeah, you're in a different position because you don't know what's about to happen. So it is different in the sense where you get to go see the Scottish kings rise, and then we see Macduff run away, and then you only find out in the moment.
Yeah. Well, it completely changes your character in a sense, because when you show up and report, your babes are all, before you're probably there when you're all, like, so that's a big difference.
Yeah.
Like
Got some splaining to do.
Exactly. Right. Like that really changes the nature of your character. Shakespeare's like a Rubik's Cube. Like you solve one half of it and the other half is all messed up. Right.
Yeah.
I mean,
well, and it's interesting because sometimes, like, we as actors can be a little bratty sometimes, and where and sometimes if you've done the play before, sometimes it's hard to release certain things. But I don't know. It's interesting to just kind of like give over to trust the director and like give over to this particular telling of it. Yes, it'll be different from the last person's telling of it, and that'll always be the case. Whenever this play gets done again, it's going to be different than that. And like with any of these plays that gets done, so every opportunity is an opportunity of its own.
Yeah, there's so much that can get embedded in theater stagings. Well, like there's a scene in Twelfth Night, which forever was set in a kitchen. We often still do it, that late night scene. And when they first didn't set in the kitchen, people were appalled. What happened to the kitchen scene? It's like, you never wrote a kitchen scene.
Where's the fridge?
They get attached.
Yeah. Sorry, go ahead.
That's all right. It's good. Good. I have A couple of interesting questions here. Something we haven't talked about. Please speak about Rosalind's heroine's jury and Hermione's. And again, we've talked about the men's perspective. What about the women in Winter's Tale and Ashu? So 2 people picked up on that. Antoni, do you want to say anything about that? The heroine's journey?
Well, I was about to say something earlier, but in my director's notes, I talk about the fact that the women and children are the real heroes in Winter's Tale, and it's forced upon them by the actions of the men. But the person who saves the day is Plina more than anybody else. Hermione's strength is singular, so that's there throughout the text. Unfortunately, though, it is heroism, and it's an exceptional series of actions that these women have to take because of what the men have done.
And we're going to see that later this season in Ransacking Troy, where Aaron Shields imagines the women who have become completely impatient with these men who are away, 10 years fighting a war, 10 years trying to get back home, and they just say, enough's enough, let's just go wrap this thing up.
I mean, is what we're saying is that men screw the world up and women have to clean up the mess?
Yeah.
Because is that...
What happened to the kitchen scene, I think is what we're saying.
Hermione is a good example. I mean, she chooses an interesting strategy to do that, right? Like, she's one of the most fascinating. To me, she's right up there with your Lady Macbeths and so on. Just incredible. Such an incredible part, you know what I mean? It must be amazing to play that.
Yeah, I think an actor playing Hermione would say it'd be nice if there were more words.
Right.
Because we don't see her for 16 years,
right.
And then she comes back, right? And so it's hard to,
She can go have a sandwich. And go
a steak.
To get back to the matter at hand, do Macbeth and Leontes share a toxic masculinity, a masculine self-doubt that are in some aspect a part of Shakespeare's own personality?
Yeah. What do you think, Andre? Well, because she starts, yeah.
Well, I don't know if it's about Shakespeare's personality, but like the writing about, yes, mainly, I guess, these men's journey through making mistakes. And more often than not, it is the women who are trying to, like Hermione in Winter's Tale is like always trying to crack through to her husband. You speak a language that I don't understand.
Mm-hmm.
What are you like? Even still, as she's on trial, it's like you're talking about some sort of fantasy. I don't know what you're talking about. Trying to bring him back to reality. But yeah, I don't know. It's as I was saying today, we're in such a world where a lot of these men are doing these sort of things at the cost of women and children, and lives across the board are being lost because one person makes one decision and a number of people die.
It is a good example. I'm sorry, because Lady M is a woman, and the killing business in that world seems to be a male thing. And
Unsex me here.
Right, and now she's saying, "We got to kill," and it's all about the future. Like, it's really important that they kill other people's kids because they want to have the line that. So she's all gung ho at the beginning, but then very quickly realizes that it's harder, and more. So he at least has the benefit of having done it a few times before. But even the Scottish king begins to outsource. He only kills once directly, and then after that, he asks other people to do it.
But they have an admirable marriage. I mean, that's the thing about, like, I mean, I forget the scholar's name, but he called Winter's Tale part of the restored marriage plays of Shakespeare. Marriages, like plays of a restored marriage, essentially midlife coming back to a marriage and renewing it, which is a very interesting topic to a 49-year-old man. But the Macbeths, they don't need. They're together. They're a unit. They are proactive. They have the 7 habits of highly effective people.
For the
they're working towards it.
Well,
like,
this is
for a little while.
this is where I find it interesting with like scholars and like actors and such combating, because true, but if you go back to the text, they're always talking in code to each other. They never actually say what's actually going on, and as like the first time they're together, they're talking in code, and that increases and increases and increases.
Right.
So yes, that first reunion of them coming together is nice, but they're not actually ever saying the real thing straight out.
Right.
And
That's
that
great.
continues to unfold and unfold throughout.
Yeah, euphemisms rule.
Yeah.
Yeah. If it were done. Can you
Yeah.
specify a little bit more?
We will speak further. We don't want to talk about this anymore.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, I had a couple more questions here. I'm sorry that I didn't get to all of them, but we did cover most of them. Quite a thick pile. Thank you for all of those contributions to the conversation today. Fascinating questions.
And Anne, I just want to jump in and thank you, Stephen, for doing this on such short
Complete
notice.
pleasure.
Getting somebody as brilliant as you are this quickly. It's great.
Thank you very much. Very fun. Very fun.
And I, too, was going to thank you, Stephen, very much. I'm so glad that you're here. And I think that maybe we will have a series in the future of Stephen Marche conversations.
Anytime you want. I lost the chance to talk about Shakespeare. I love to talk about it.
I
It's
also-
20 years since I was a professor. I love it.
I also think you came up with your sequel to this as you were talking today. And
Stuff is stuff.
No, you've got how Shakespeare changed everything, and about halfway through you decided how everything changed Shakespeare.
Right. Yeah.
So we look forward to that. Thank you, Antoni. Thank you very much, Andre. Andre has a triple day today. He's got Macker's this afternoon. He's got A Winter's Tale tonight, and he is here with us today. So thank you so much.
That's crazy.
Thank you for listening. Be sure to subscribe to keep up with the lively conversations and original performances on the Stratford Festival streaming service, Stratfest at Home. And for making it this far in the episode, enjoy 1 month for free. Visit stratfestathome.ca and enter code FREEMONTH. It takes you, our listeners, to make this possible. It also takes the support of our dear collaborators. Support for the Meighen Forum is generously provided by Kelly and Michael Meighen and the TR Meighen Family Foundation. Original score for the Everyday Forum podcast was provided by Hilary Adams. Production support is provided by the film production and distribution team at the Stratford Festival. That is coordinator Vilma Mancini and director Jenna McGaw. The Meighen Forum team is producing assistant Renata Hansen, associate coordinator James Hyatt, manager Gregory McLaughlin, and director Julie Miles. Special thanks to Mike Duncan, Greg Doherty, and Harper Charlton. Finally, thanks to artistic director Antoni Cimolino and executive director Anita Gaffney. From here in Stratford, Ontario, on the land of the Neutrals and the Anishinaabe, see you next time. Ba Mapi.